Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a recent visit to the Nepal Dhanpalthan program. Glad that you could join us this evening. I'm Rachel Conley, and I'm part of the staff here at Growing Hope Globally. I work with our programs in Asia and Africa in our growing projects in Michigan and Indiana. And I'm glad to welcome you here tonight. I'm also joined by Kristen Rohr, who is one of my fellow travelers. Kristen lives in Baltimore, Maryland now, but she grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and grew up participating in one of the growing projects there. So glad Kristen could join me on the trip and tonight. We were also supposed to be joined by Mitchell Brown, who was our other fellow traveler. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it at the last moment, but Mitchell lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and works for John Deere, and he's involved with one of our growing projects through Green Mark Equipment here in Michigan and Indiana. So we're sad that he's not able to join us, but I have some words that he's prepared for us that I'll be reading later. So for those of you who are not familiar with Growing Hope Globally, we work with churches and farmers and agribusinesses here in the U.S. through our growing projects to support agricultural development programs around the world. So it's farmers helping farmers, communities helping communities. This program that we visited, sorry, technical difficulties, there we go. The program that we visited was working with two of our partner organizations, or one of our international partner organizations, Mennonite Central Committee. And this is the Mennonite Central Committee team in Nepal with our group. So this was in their office in Kathmandu when we first visited. Also traveling with us from Mennonite Central Committee was Michael Adeola, who's our main person that we work with for programs there. So this is Michael and Durga, our two main MCC people who traveled around with us. And I enjoyed getting the opportunity to travel with Michael after working with him online for about 6 years now. It was great to be able to meet with him in person. Mennonite Central Committee is our international implementing partner, and they in turn work in Nepal with an organization called SAHAS, which means Group of Helping Hands. We also had the chance to meet with the SAHAS team in Kathmandu before going out to the project area. And so this is their team and our group. And you'll notice the two girls on the far right in this photo were also in the MCC photo. They participate in Mennonite Central Committee's SALT program, which is an international program where people are working overseas for a year. So we spent some time with them and enjoyed getting to know them a little bit as well. So we also worked with a different group of people from SAHAS out in the field. And so this is us with the SAHAS team out near the program area. So as I mentioned, we started out in Kathmandu and met with both of those partners. And then we flew to the city of Biratnagar, which is in the southeast part of Nepal. So you can see the map here. Nepal is in red in the top left corner. The state that we visited is the kind of gray state in the far right of the map below that. That's Koshi. Sorry, I said state, but it's a province actually. It's Koshi province. And then the red part is Morang district, and that's where the program is working. So we visited Dhanpalthan, which is where the red arrow is on the right-hand map. And where the arrow itself is actually India. So it's in the southeast part of Nepal, right along the border with India. This is our second program in that area. And we previously worked with similar partners. Previously we worked with a different partner, but for the last phase, we also worked with SAHAS and MCC to implement a program in the area to the left called Jahada. So just to give you a little bit of a lay of the land there. So this program aims to improve food and nutrition security with increased resilience of marginalized communities in Dhanpalthan rural municipality. And there's 7 wards in Dhanpalthan, and this is working in 4 of those wards. So our previous program worked in Jahada in various wards over the years. And while we were there, we had the chance to visit 5 communities from the current program, and then 1 community that had been part of the previous 3-year phase. So they'd been going for about 4 years in Jahada. So this program has 3 major outcomes, and I'd like to kind of go through them this evening and share what we saw as related to these outcomes. So enhanced resilience and livelihood of marginalized and vulnerable communities, improved family nutrition, and strengthened community institutions. So this program is working with very socially marginalized and economically marginalized communities from mostly Dalit people groups. And the caste system is technically not there anymore, but it really still lingers. So the people that we worked with were from those lower castes, and they haven't had very many opportunities. So this program gives them those opportunities to learn and participate in the development process. This area is mostly Hindu and Muslim, but there's a few Christian groups mixed in there as well. In fact, one of the groups that we visited, there was a small church right in the same sort of house compound right there with that community group. So some of the challenges faced are poverty, food and nutrition insecurity, social discrimination, gender-based violence, child marriage, and limited access to basic things like education and health. The program is focused on 720 households with a focus on marginalized women and youth. So I'm going to start actually with our 3rd outcome because it's kind of the basis for the program. So as I mentioned, we visited with 6 different community groups, and so far the program has formed 28 of these community-based organizations. So these groups come together for learning, solidarity, savings, and action. The group leaders receive additional training to understand and carry out their roles. And this is kind of how SAHAS works. So the community-based organization are those groups at the bottom. Like I mentioned, they've started 28 of them so far. They work together in a community level, but then several groups will join together at the ward level to form a main committee. And then from the ward level main committees, they'll each send a representative to join the community-based network organization. So eventually, they'll have this system in place throughout the whole rural municipality that will be there even after the program ends. And that's a really neat system because it puts sustainability into the program right from the start. So the program has been going for just over a year. And so it was incredible to see the progress that these community groups were making in just 1 year. The groups are encouraged to register with the local government and then submit their annual plans to the local government. And 11 of the groups had already done that, and others were working toward that. The local government will sometimes provide them with material support for the plans that the individual groups have made. For example, some of them had received seeds or sprayers or other equipment that they requested that were part of their annual plans. The groups also do local advocacy on important topics. For example, many of the groups mentioned that they had learned the negative impacts of early marriage. And so they were advocating against that and trying to make sure that no one in their community was getting married before the age of 20. In the past, some people have gotten married as early as 14, and the groups are recognizing the negative impact that has on both women and children to have children at such a young age. Some groups were working on encouraging vital registration. So, for example, educating their community on the importance of getting birth certificates and other like national identity cards, things like that, so that people had access to all the resources that were available to them locally. And 8 groups have already led campaigns related to water, sanitation, and hygiene as well. Savings and loans were another important component of the groups and the program. And I really enjoyed seeing this visual in our in the SAHAS field office. This is what they call the cracked pot analysis. So imagine a pot, and into that pot are things like the money you earn from day labor, from agriculture, from all sorts of things. And then the stuff at the bottom are the holes where that money leaks out. You know, all of a sudden your money's all gone and you wonder where it went. Things like transportation, smoking, eating out, alcohol, um, gambling, loans, important things like school fees, phone credit, you name it. There, all the different things are listed there. And the program started out with encouraging people to think about where they were losing that money and how they could maybe set some aside and save some. And so 15 of the groups had already started saving, and they were lending each other money. They give each other loans for family emergencies and income generating opportunities. The interest rates are crazy normally. They normally pay 16 to 18% in interest on the loans that they get from local money lenders. So being able to get a lower interest loan, even if it's 12% interest, is a big advantage. And then they're able to save that money in their group, and their whole group benefits ultimately, including themselves. So even if they have to pay back at 12% interest, it's important that the money is staying in the community and continuing to benefit the community. So some people were taking those loans for emergencies, but a lot of them were also doing income generating activities. One of the women said, "It is impossible for us to save money at home. There's always something to spend it on or some urgent need. So the only way that we can save money is if we have to do it as part of the group." And each group decides how they want to arrange that. Some of them might save 50 rupees a month, some might save 100, some might save less. Whatever they feel like they can handle, that will work for their group and their situation. Some people had also received a lower interest revolving loan through the program itself. So these loans are lower interest, like 5%. And they're given by the program, but then 2% of the money that's paid back goes into the savings group, so it provides them a little extra capital. And then 3% goes into the cooperative, which is at the ward level. And so that helps them to keep going and to handle some of the administrative things that they have to do too. So the next area is sort of related to this, but we saw several people who were taking these loans and putting them into practice. So this lady got one of those revolving loans. She was taking that to make these sandals out of recycled tires. So she said that she could buy a tire for 1,000 rupees, and then she could make 6 or 7 pairs of shoes per tire and sell them for 350 rupees each. So 1,000 rupees is about $6.50. She could sell them for about $2.25 each. And basically half of that would be profit then. She repays her loan monthly, and she said that by getting that loan, she was able to start her business a full year earlier than if she'd had to save her own money. These sandals, it was kind of interesting, were used specifically for brick factory workers because they can't use normal plastic sandals because they'll melt because it's so hot in the brick factory. So these are specially designed for people working in that situation. Other people, and this is part of outcome one, which is enhanced resilience and livelihood of marginalized and vulnerable communities. So other people were doing grocery shops. So this is one woman that we saw, that was the secretary of one of the groups. She was also doing some tailoring in her grocery shop. This guy had just taken a loan out and had started it about like a month or two before, so he was just getting started. We thought his marketing strategy was interesting. If you can see on the left, each of those packets of chips or whatever they are have a little balloon attached as a marketing ploy to get kids to buy them because they get a bonus balloon. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then still others are doing things like this. This guy was part of the previous phase of the program. And he'd been already involved in a rice milling business, but he really wanted to expand. So he took a large loan of 150,000 rupees, which is about $975, to expand his rice milling business. And he was able to repay it in a year. And he hopes to take another loan to further expand the business. But he mills rice and corn and other grains for the community, which is an important service that everyone needs. So it's really beneficial for everyone. He's also working to diversify his business. He's now raising ducks, pigs, goats, and cows to supplement his income as well. So he was definitely one of those success stories. In addition, 15 people have participated in specialized training for different skills for income generating activities. So all different things. I know in the previous phase, some people trained as auto rickshaw drivers, specifically women auto rickshaw drivers. So that was a really neat opportunity for people that they wouldn't normally get. Another big thing is animal husbandry. They had just had a beekeeping training like a month or two before we arrived, and each person had been given one hive. And then they already had a lot of plans to expand. Someone said to us, in the past, when our kids had colds, we would give them honey, but it was always imported from India. Now we will be happy to have local honey. We're just getting started, so the first harvest hasn't happened yet, but we're excited. Um, so some of these brave women, one person said, I used to be afraid of bees, but now they're my friends, which I thought was kind of cool. Other people were raising pigs. Some people were raising goats, and I don't have a photo of that. Other people were raising a flock of ducks in whatever local ponds were available. And then this group was doing fish farming. This was a community pond that was being leased as part of the program. They were also making plans to do a lot of vegetable, like bags of vegetable seeds on that platform behind them, and then the vines would grow up over the pond and provide some shade for the pond, and it was just a great place for them to sneak in a few extra vegetables. This works the first year of the program, they get the pond lease paid for 100%. The second year they pay half, and then the third year they pay all of it. But they had fish in the pond and they had received some training and they were waiting for them to grow. They were planning to harvest them in October for a special festival where fish were really in demand and would fetch a high price. Other income generating things that people are doing are more agriculture related. It wasn't rice growing season just yet. We saw people transplanting rice seedlings when we were there. So the way they're doing it here is called the system of rice intensification. which is a way of dramatically increasing rice yields by planting them in a different way. Instead of planting a clump of rice seedlings at each planting station, you just plant a single seedling, but it's at a younger age. Normally you'd transplant at about 30 to 45 days of age for the plant. Now you transplant at about 8 to 10 days and a single seedling, and it requires less seed, but it produces a lot more because it sends up a lot more tillers and then produces a lot more grain. So we didn't get to see a lot of that, but there was some of that. They're also encouraging people to do a rice, kidney bean, and maize rotation, which is new for them. But kidney beans are a very high value local legume, and it's better for the soil that way too. A lot of people were used to seeing people have to cultivate vegetables using fertilizer and pesticides that they would buy. And that cost was prohibitive for a lot of people. Through this program now, they're learning to do things using organic vegetable cultivation methods. So that means producing their own fertilizer and their own pesticide. So these ladies are both standing in front of vermicompost bins, so worm compost. So they fill up one side and the worms eat it all down. And then in the meantime, they're starting to store materials on the other side. And then when the worms are done eating one side, they transfer them to the other side. And then they start filling it up, or they empty that side out, use it in their fields, and then start filling the other side. So it's an ongoing system. They also can, the woman on the left, you see by her, there's a sort of a drain where the liquid has drained off of the vermicompost bin, and they take the liquid out of there and they dilute it and they spray that on the plants as a liquid fertilizer. So they're really using it throughout the whole process. They're also using integrated pest management. So on the right, you see the yellow sticky traps. They use those as an organic way of getting the insects before they get to the plants. On the left, you see a woman who is making biopesticides. So they use a lot of local ingredients and they mix them together. And then they dilute it, mix it with water, and they spray it on their plants. One of the group members said, we're using biopesticides now. We used to use chemical pesticides, but we learned how to make biopesticides using local ingredients. It's better for our kids. The biopesticides really work and we can save a lot of money. One of the other things we saw, oh, and I should also mention they are using these pheromone traps, and that's what you see hanging in those bottles in this photo. But people are learning to do kitchen gardening in many small spaces, any space that's available. A lot of people in the program area are landless. They don't have any land except for the small place that their house is on. So they have to use every available space. So they're growing a lot of vine type plants that can grow up above wherever whatever spaces they need to still be able to use. Other people are mixing a bunch of different things together in very small plots, but they're able to provide for their families in that way. One person said, we didn't think we could grow anything because we didn't have land or money for inputs, but now we plant climbers around the house and we use biopesticides, which reduces our input costs. One person said it saves them an average of 2,000 rupees, which is about $13 per month, because they grow their own vegetables instead of having to buy them in the market. So here's another example of using every available space. This woman had, I think those are called snake boards. They're coming up with creative ways to move vegetables when there's flooding. So like this lady had all these different vegetables in these sacks on a stick, and she could pick it up and move if the courtyard was flooding there. And that is a real issue in that area. We hear about seasonal flooding almost every year. They are also doing leasehold farming. So some people who don't have land get access to a very small plot of land, 1 kata, which is a local measurement that's equal to about 0.08 acres. So it's not a huge spot, but they're able to grow vegetables commercially. They grow different vegetables in different seasons, um, and it allows them to make some income and also provide for their families. The program is promoting biodiversity and seed saving, and they were starting a community seed bank that they'll be able to share seeds with different people throughout the seasons and save native varieties. We saw some very successful vegetable growers from the previous phase who are now growing a wide variety of crops. You can see this woman is planting, I think that's okra. There's several different kinds of climbers behind her. She was growing turmeric. She was doing the system of rice intensification, and she had purchased more land also and was looking to buy additional land because she'd been so successful. Um, at the end of one very hot day, I was a bit reluctant at first to stop, but when we found a local market and we decided to walk through it, and we found some of the people from the previous phase selling their vegetables, and that was really cool to see. So I'm so glad we stopped and didn't let the heat get the most of us. It was very hot when we were there. And it was just really neat to see how they were improving their family's nutrition, but then also the community's nutrition by selling these organic vegetables. And that is the last outcome, improved family nutrition. So mothers are receiving nutrition training. Like I mentioned, they're doing the home gardening. You can see one of the little ones here who is benefiting from that, growing whatever they can around their house. They were also planting trees for the National Environment Day. You can't see it very well, but there's, I think, a mango tree maybe, or a lychee tree planted inside that yellow netting. And each of the women of the group had committed to planting one tree at their home, a fruit or vegetable, not a fruit or vegetable tree, a fruit tree or some other useful tree that they could have for their family. They're also doing some identification, promotion, and documentation of what wild plants are edible in the area. So they're doing things also with other indigenous nutritious crops like millet and buckwheat. But they were providing some training to prepare local food recipes and preserve local food, for example, pickling. So one woman said, we're learning about wild edible plants and they are very nutritious. For example, taro leaves and roots and banana flowers. And we're learning about new recipes like carrot porridge. We make it with milk and spices and it's delicious. We're using bamboo shoots and making curry with them or pickling them. And we also like to make black gram fritters now. We've tried pickling mushrooms too. So they're trying all sorts of new things that they hadn't considered previously. Part of that is child growth monitoring. So they do that by measuring the upper arm circumference of the children ages 0 to 5 and making sure that they're within the range, that they're not stunted. And some of the children were found to be malnourished, including this little girl on the right side of the picture here. Her mom said that she was malnourished and she learned through the program to make super flour. And super flour is a very balanced mix of local legumes and grains that they mix with other fruits and vegetables and feed to small children. It helps them get back to a healthy diet and prevents malnourishment. If there are children who are severely malnourished, they refer them to a local hospital for treatment and recovery. So we asked some of the women, what is the biggest change you've seen? And they said, we're making and eating food that's good for us. We don't need to go to the market. We just pick it from our garden and we cook it. So that is the basic overview of the program based on what we saw. I was originally planning on Mitchell being here this evening, and he, as I mentioned, works in agriculture. This was his first time traveling outside of the US, and I asked him if he could share a little bit about the differences and similarities between his work and what we saw in Nepal. Um, he said traveling outside of the US was an experience that was both much appreciated and much needed. The differences, yet remarkably similar patterns, were insightful. I work within the application sector of ag equipment, or in other words, sprayers. So many of the practices of the different programs or groups were really relatable, just on a completely different scale. It goes to show that sustainability is prioritized within any operation, no matter what the country. And this picture of the sprayer is kind of fun. Mitchell kept asking if he could see one of the sprayers. And I think we were all expecting something a little bit bigger than this, but this is the size that works for what they have. So they mixed together some of that liquid manure from the vermicompost. They poured it through a cloth to filter it, and then they diluted it. I think it was like 5 to 1 with water, and then they sprayed it as a foliar spray on the vegetables to help with growth. So it was just kind of neat to see that. And I also asked Mitchell, I'll just go into this right now too, if he had anything else he wanted to share about his experience. He said, this trip has positively impacted and influenced me to stay involved with Growing Hope globally. I'd like to thank all who were involved for giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to continuously staying in touch with Growing Hope. So I also wanted to ask Kristen to share some comments this evening. So Kristen, you mentioned that you were inspired by what the groups we met were able to do when they worked together. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Rachel. And thank you, everyone, for joining today and hearing about our trip and this project. So I was really inspired by speaking with these women and hearing from them about really the collective bargaining power that they were able to garner within their groups, both within their direct communities and their families, and with the local governance systems that they were encountering. So, some of these things that Rachel touched on, like the super flour and kind of nutritional inputs that they were learning about, they were really eager to share with the rest of their community, whether they were a part of these village groups or not. They felt more emboldened and confident to kind of share this information with their communities directly. Things about, the child marriages, like medical care for women who are pregnant and for children under 5, tracking that growth. And trying to encourage people within their communities and even with the other communities nearby who might not have their own village group established, they felt more emboldened to share what they had learned with kind of everyone around them, which was really amazing to see. And also then with their kind of local governance systems, they were able to get agricultural inputs and supports and supplies from their, local governance, their wards, which, they noted that, as just like one individual or family or, just one person in a family going to the ward office, they weren't able to get these supplies that they maybe even knew that they were allowed or permitted by the government, but they didn't feel like the government was listening to them. But when they all could come together as a group, they had just a much stronger voice and ability to advocate for themselves, and to get the supplies that they needed to kind of keep cultivating this knowledge that they've learned, from the project and training skills they've gained to just continue to help themselves and benefit their communities. So it was really inspiring to hear from them about, that kind of confidence that they've grown within themselves and how that's been spreading throughout their communities. So I found that really, wonderful to hear, and amazing to speak with them about.
Thank you, Kristen. And I just wanted to share one quote that the ladies had. By the way, the women raising their hand in this photo are raising their hand when we asked who felt empowered more than they had a year ago. So that was really cool to see all those hands raised. So one of the women said, "There's strength in unity. One hand cannot clap. Ants work together, and even though they're small, they can do a lot. We go together to the ward office, and together we are stronger." So that was it was really cool to see just how empowered they felt only 1 year into the program. Just made me think, wow, if this is only 1 year in, what are things going to look like 3 years from now? So before I go further, it just occurred to me that I failed to mention that if you have any questions at any time, please go ahead and type them into the Q&A area, and we'll get to those in just a minute or two. Feel free to ask questions of me or of Kristen, or yeah, just about the program in general, and we'll do our best to answer those. There was just one other story I wanted to share that I found really neat. So we have what we call the Learning and Serving Together Fund. And we are able to use that fund periodically, thanks to some people who gave generously. This was a fund that was set up at the time of Bev Abma's retirement, and the fund has some money in it that we can use for regional learning opportunities mainly. We used that fund this past October to send several people from the Asia region to the ECHO Asia conference. ECHO is an organization that it's called Education Concerns for Hunger Organizations, and they have a base in Florida where they learn about different methods of sustainable agriculture, and then they share them with people around the world. They also have an impact center in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and that's where the conference was. The two gentlemen in this picture, Durga, who was with MCC that we were traveling with, and then Jeetbal from SAHAS were participants in that conference. And the day that we were traveling with them, Durga happened to be wearing his t-shirt from the conference. And we visited one woman who was growing some seeds that they had gotten as part of a seed exchange at that conference. So it was really neat to see the seeds that they had gotten through the conference as part of that seed exchange out there in the community, being tested, being tried out. Apparently, these are lima beans. Excuse me, the Christmas pole variety, and they are not typically grown in this area. So it'll be exciting to see how they work. They seem to be doing really well. But it was just really neat to see that Learning and Serving Together fund at work in a very tangible way. And both Durga and Jeetbal also said, "We were so inspired by this conference that we just wanted to quit our jobs and start farming full time, but we won't, because we know that this work is important too." So that was just a really neat opportunity to see that. At this time, if you have any questions, please let us know. But in the meantime, if you'd like to support programs like this one in Nepal or any of our programs, you can do that by visiting our website, growinghopeglobally.org, or you can scan this QR code. We have about 40 programs right now around the world, and they're each doing something a little different. This is an example of one great program that we got the opportunity to see, but there's amazing work happening in communities around the world. So your support is welcome and appreciated. If you're interested in traveling with us, we don't currently have any program visits scheduled at this time, but we are in the initial phases of organizing several that will be probably in next February or March. So stay tuned for those and keep an eye on the travel page on our website if that's something that you'd be interested in. I think anyone who's traveled with us will say that it's definitely eye-opening, especially if you haven't had the chance to visit development program before. Um, Kristen, is there anything else you'd like to add? It doesn't look like we have any questions at this time. So if anyone wants to sneak any last questions in, feel free. Otherwise, I'll let Kristen offer any final thoughts and then I will do the same.
Yeah, no, thanks, Rachel. Yeah, just wanted to give a big thank you to Growing Hope globally for allowing me to be a participant on this trip and get to see, a part of the world that I might never get a chance to see otherwise. It's a really amazing opportunity to just speak with people and learn about how they live. And honestly, this trip was really inspiring to me to come back to the States and really think about how we can be garnering our own community groups and using that type of energy within our communities to advocate for ourselves, to share with our community, to share knowledge and practices, and address the problems that we have in our everyday lives. So it was really amazing to kind of see someone on the other side of the world um, have this community association organization kind of partnership to be able to really, launch themselves into solving their own problems and creating strong livelihoods for themselves. So it inspired me to kind of look inward and within my own community into how I can be a more active member to, just work toward the goals that I have and the community that I'd like to garner. So thank you.
Oh, sorry. It looks like we do have a question here, but my computer is not cooperating. This person said, is there a particular program that needs funding at this time? There are actually several programs on our urgently in need of funding list. I don't have them on the top of my mind, but if you go to our programs page on our website, on the far right side, there's a drop down thing, and you can select, you can sort by programs that are urgently in need of funding. And those will be programs that need funding the soonest, that still don't have all the funds that they need for the current year. So thank you for asking that. We're always yeah, we're always at work trying to fund all of our programs. So I appreciate you asking that. Um and I will just say this this visit was not my first visit to Nepal, definitely not my first visit with Growing Hope Globally, but I continue to be inspired every time I go and visit one of the programs overseas. Just makes me grateful to get to do this work and to be a part of this organization because it really is clear that lives are being changed around the world thanks to the support of all of you out there. So thank you for your support. Thank you for continuing to inspire change in communities in Nepal and around the world. It doesn't look like we have any additional questions at this time. Feel free to email us those if you have questions later. Otherwise, I'd just like to say thank you for joining us and have a good evening.